Welcome to the Butler Did It. I'm your host, Adam Butler, back with another episode. And yeah, I'm indecisive. Sue me. Yeah, I'm back. This podcast is back. Yes, I said I was going to retire the podcast. Yeah, I meant it at the time. And yes, I am very indecisive, man. I'm a creative. That's how we are. We never know what we're going to do. And that's actually a big issue with some of us creatives, is that it's very difficult to stick to one thing, and it's very difficult to stick to a plan, because having a plan is almost, I guess it's the opposite of being, being a person that plans out is almost being like the opposite of being a creative, right? Like creatives, we kind of fly off the cuff. We kind of just do. When we get a feeling, we just do shit. So here's what I think is going to happen with the Butler Did It podcast. I'm not going to make any promises anymore. I'm going to do it when I feel like it. If I feel like going live, I'll go live. If I put out an episode, I'll put out an episode. And if you guys continue to rock with me, I will greatly appreciate it. I won't even be surprised if only one person listens to this particular episode, because again, I am horribly indecisive. And please forgive me for that. I do have stuff that I do regularly. Please check out the Gov Exec podcast. We do that show every single day. I do have excuses, okay? I've been super duper busy, super duper tied up. The Gov Exec podcast, shout out to Ross. I've been hosting that show a lot. We do that show daily. I produce that show daily. And of course, the What Are Those show, I do that show every week. Shout outs to the OMF network for giving me the opportunity to do that, man. It feels really dope to be able to. So I haven't been just sitting around doing nothing. I've been podcasting. I just figured that I would do something different with the Butler Did It podcast. But at the end of the day, every now and then I just like to get on the mic and talk shit, man. So I'm here. This is an episode. This is a new episode of the Butler Did It podcast. For whatever reason, I'm compelled to do an episode of the Butler Did It podcast, and you guys are here, and hopefully you all enjoy it. And I do have a reason why I came back and did this particular show, because I want to talk about Kwame Brown. I really want to get into Kwame. Kwame Brown has been one of the most interesting, intriguing, and polarizing characters in recent memory. And who would have thought the dude Kwame Brown, the former number one pick by my Washington Wizards, right, who was the former number one pick by my favorite player, Michael Jordan. We're going to get into all that. Who would have thought that Kwame Brown would have had some form of a renaissance in 2021 and become one of the most important voices in our culture right now? I want to talk about that and so much more. But before that, I want to say again, thank you so much for rocking with me, for really checking out my other brands and products. You guys are super dope. And thank you for being patient with this thing, man. This has always been a passion project for me. This has always been something that I've struggled to get off the ground. The Butler Did It brand has worked out in different ways, but the Butler Did It podcast is something I've been trying to really figure out how to do for years now. And again, I'm just my choice is just to not put so much pressure on it anymore. I want to do it when I feel like doing it. If you guys check it out, you check it out, man. But it's just a way for me to get my thoughts off and, just get my shit off, man. So without further ado, let's get into the topics. Talking about your boy, Kwame Brown. Yo, did y'all know like fitted caps are making a comeback? Like, I haven't had a fitted cap in years, like since Kwame Brown was playing for the Wizards, if I'm being real, which is weird to have like this non-snapback thing going on, but I think I'm digging it. I'm trying to keep up with the trims. We've been in brims now. We're wearing shorter shorts. You know what I'm saying? We're wearing fitted caps. Then time changes, man. Time just moves on, man. And so much so that Kwame Brown, and it kind of moves in a circle, things kind of come back, right? We're talking about Kwame Brown, right? It's fitting that I'm wearing this fitted cap, because this reminds me of 2002 when Kwame Brown was in the NBA. I remember it very vividly. I remember those times with the Wizards, man. It was an odd time for me, because for you all that don't know, it wouldn't be hard to guess. I'm a 90s kid, so Michael Jordan was a hero to me, and still is a guy that I admire. I know that, Michael Jordan has a a reputation for being a mean guy and being kind of tough on teammates and not the squeaky clean, super duper cheerful, smiling guy that we were all spoon fed in the 90s and 80s when we were children. As you grow up, you realize that your heroes are human beings, right? And you realize that they're not all just superheroes and guys that just do everything right and do everything perfectly. So, for me, when Michael Jordan came into town and decided to play for my Washington Wizards, the former Washington Bullets, man, the lowliest little team in the NBA. The Wizards are a team, even now with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, and you used to have John Wall, and, we've had Gilbert Arenas here, and Paul Pierce played here, but we were never a team. This is never a team that was able to take it over the top. I'm a Washington football team fan as well. We know what the name used to be. Even that team at one point was like Super Bowl champions and one of the more prolific teams in the league. The Wizards were never that. The Bullets, the former Bullets, won a championship years before I was born. I never remember them being winners. So, long story short, when Michael Jordan decided to come back and be a part owner, I think he was general manager. I can't even remember. Either way, he wanted to be the owner of the Wizards, and he came back and played for a couple of years. It was the greatest experience of my young life. I was just fresh out of high school. My aunt bought me tickets for to go see the Wizards play the Charlotte Hornets when I was, just turning, I think, 18. I watched Michael Jordan score 55 points or 50 points, basically all jumpers. It was again, for a guy like me who never thought he'd be able to see Michael Jordan play, it was the coolest shit in the world. And I'll never forget those times, and I say all of this because I'll never forget the drafting of Kwame Brown. It was in this city, in Washington D.C. I should have worn my Wizards hat for this one, my little Wizards hat. I should have wore that one. But anyway, in this town in Washington D.C., Kwame Brown's name is just, it sparks emotions. We were here. It was different when the guy was drafted for your team. We'll never forget this dude. You know what I mean? We had high hopes for Kwame, but we also, as a city, were very worried about Kwame because we knew how young he was. We understood it early on. Remember, we saw Kwame in preseason. There were stories of Kwame. Again, he played for our hometown. So we understood everything that went wrong with Kwame Brown. We heard about it first here in D.C. And there was no shortage of shortcoming for Kwame Brown. Kwame Brown obviously didn't catch on well in the NBA, even though he had a long career. We're going to get into that. He had a long career, longer than you would have thought. But he didn't really catch on to be the number one pick fresh out of high school. You got to think about other picks that came out of high school. Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. He didn't live up to any of those guys. And he was also drafted at a time where there were really, again, Garnett and Kobe had come out some years before, and everybody was looking for the next KG or the next Kobe Bryant, and they were missing on these guys back to back to back. It just so happens that Kwame Brown was the number one pick for a team that at the time had Michael Jordan as the GM, as a person in charge making decisions, and then he was the new teammate for Michael Jordan. So of course we saw all the the hazing, and if you want to call it bullying or whatever, we saw it all. And we lived through it, man. And we were hard on Kobe. We were hard on Kwame as fans. We definitely were. We didn't, I'd be lying if I said I had a high level of respect for Kwame Brown as just a fan of the team as a young man. It was just, he was a dude who we thought was a bum. And then he went on to L.A. and he had to play with Kobe Bryant. God rest Kobe Bryant's soul. But Kobe Bryant is basically, was basically mini Michael Jordan. So he was tough on Kwame, So Kwame's career kind of just faded on. He became a glorified role player, and he became what many people call a bust. And when you're a bust, people make fun of you. Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, he was a running joke. It became like in the NFL, it's like, don't be Ryan Leaf, and the NBA is don't be Kwame Brown. You don't want to be the next Kwame Brown. And as an adult, I realized how unfair that was to that man, even though, it's a tricky thing when you're talking about sports and athletics. One end, you're talking about the entertainment aspect of it, and entertainers get made fun of, and athletes are entertainers in some respect. On the other hand, you're talking about a human being with an actual human life who just wants to play basketball and do his job. And imagine if someone critiqued your job every single day and wrote about you in papers and talked about you on national television. You'd feel it too. But the thing that's surprising about Kwame is how quiet and reserved we really thought he was. For many of us, even in DC, when we saw and heard about everything, I remember this big article came out about Kwame. Had to have been 10, 15 years ago when this thing came out. That's how long ago this was. Had to have been 10 at the very least. This big Washington Post article came out, this expose on Kwame Brown, about how he didn't know how to wash his own clothes. He was just basically a giant kid, didn't have any social skills. It just really just painted Kwame Brown out to be this dude who should have never been drafted in the first place, should have never had an opportunity to be in NBA. And then you hear him speak for the first time. So let's really get down to why I'm on here talking about Kwame Brown. And unless you've been living under a rock, you know what's been going on with Kwame. So Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes have a podcast called All the Smoke. It's a cool podcast, basically just talking to former NBA players, and they happen to have Gilbert Arenas on, who's a former Wizard. What? Don't know if he played with Kwame. He probably did play with Kwame. But Gilbert Arenas, who was an outspoken dude, former Wizard, they were on there and they were, they're making fun of Kwame because that's what people do. They make fun of Kwame. And Kwame figured out an iPhone or something, figured out Zoom or something, figured out FaceTime or IG Live or something, and decided that he was fed up. Kwame Brown decided that he was going to talk for the first time ever. He went in on these dudes. I mean, he went in. He talked about Matt Barnes and the Derek Fisher situation, which I know most of you know about. Derek Fisher famously, slept with Matt Barnes' girlfriend or baby mother, whoever it was. He talked about Steven Jackson and called him a hypocrite. Talked about, on one hand, you a Black Lives Matter protest. On the other hand, you think you're a gangster. He went in, and then he went in on Stephen A. Smith. He talked about how Stephen A. Smith talked about him for years and how hurtful it was for him, right? For years, he talked about how this man just dumped on him and dumped on him and dumped on him and how hurtful it was. He talked about Skip Bayless. And then other people were chiming. He talked about Jamel Hill. I don't know what Jamel Hill said about Kwame Brown, but he went in on Jamel Hill. Then he went in on Charlemagne. Charlemagne had something to say about it. He went in on Charlemagne. He went in on anybody that had something to say about him over the years. On top of that, he talked about his time with the Wizards. He talked about how it was tough for him, how Michael Jordan didn't really want him. Doug Collins was tough on him. Former Wizards are talking about it. It's crazy. Kwame Brown is unleashed. You don't want to fool with Kwame Brown. In fact, Kwame Brown has intimidated and bettered some of the most notorious media personalities there are. Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, Charlemagne the God. Anybody that has gotten in Kwame Brown's warpath has lost. Period, point blank. There's no other way to put it. Kwame Brown, if this is a chess game, Kwame Brown is winning. If this is a basketball game, Kwame Brown up by 50 right now. He's stomping these dudes. He is dog walking everybody. And I can tell you why. Because mental health matters. And everybody has a breaking point. And even the best of us can only take but so much. Kwame Brown has been funny to us for years. Kwame Brown, I think at one point even accepted that, you know what, I'm just a joke. Until he couldn't anymore. Until one day he was sitting around minding his own black ass business. And one of his former teammates, Steven Jackson, and another former NBA player, and another former NBA player who may or may not have been a former teammate of his, Gilbert Arenas, were just talking about him. And I even looked at the clip, and it wasn't even that bad, but it don't matter. This man was holding this in for 20 years. 20. He'd been the punching bag of sports talk, television, and radio, and media for 20 years. Since he was 17 years old. Kwame Brown is probably my age. I'm 39 years old. I imagine Kwame Brown is about a year or two younger than me. So that means since he was 17 years old, through his late teens, through his 20s, through his 30s, he just accepted that I get clowned because I'm Kwame. And that's what happens. Until one day he decided, nah. I was sitting around doing other shit, and then this Kwame Brown thing happens, and it reminded me of why I used to love getting on this microphone and talking to y'all. Because when we talking about black men's mental health, I am reminded that we have to stay on top of it. I'm not calling Kwame crazy. I'm not saying that. In fact, I'm proud of Kwame Brown. I've made fun of Kwame Brown. Now, mind you, he don't know nothing about me making fun of him on MSR, whatever platform I probably had, or just talking with friends. He's not tripping off me. But when he speaks out like this, when he talks like this, when he reminds you that even my favorite player, the person I admire to this day, the man I look at as a businessman and just as a man who I've defended, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, even he was wrong in his treatment. Let me give you another example. My wife and I have gotten into watching Married at First Sight. And, I don't know how many of you watch Married at First Sight, but, the latest season obviously has a very toxic male on it. And we got very intrigued by that and interested in this wild. Reality TV just gets you in a rabbit hole. Someone said you need to watch season 10. It's in D.C. We go, oh, man, we're from D.C. Oh, yeah, we definitely want to see the D.C. season. Well, there's two brothers on that season, Brandon and Michael. And when I say these brothers went out bad, I mean, they went out bad. Embarrassment, reputations just tattered, in my humble opinion. The brother Michael was caught lying several times to his arranged wife. She couldn't handle it. Everything that came out of his mouth at one point for her was pretty much a lie. Even if he was telling the truth, she would accuse him of lying. And because he lied a few times, the audience, we would just believe that he was a liar. And on the surface, you can look at that and you can go, well, he's a scumbag. He lies. But I watched him a couple of times. I looked in his eyes. I watched him say things to his girl and then take a deep breath. I remember specifically there was one episode where the girl said, hey, I come home and you've been home at different times of the day. What's going on with that? I thought you just took a new job. And I watched him say to the girl, I put in my 2 weeks notice. And he explained it and he tried to be, proper on television and say it the right way. And after he said, I watched him. Like, I know I'm about to get destroyed by this woman. And again, this isn't any knock on the woman. I don't even, Mika is her name. There's no disrespect to Mika. I mean, she reacted like anybody that would if they'd been lied to several times by their spouse. I get that. And I'm not trying to, blame her. But there were a couple of situations when this man talked about his background. And he talked about his circumstances and how he came up. This man's an orphan. This man was adopted by his aunt. This man didn't know his mother. This man had expressed that he got used to lying about the person he believed his mother was. And then got used to lying about, who he wanted to be, that he just became a liar because he never checked in on his mental wealth. He never did it. Mental health, He never did it. And instead of coming out of it, thinking about this dude, Michael, as some villain on a reality show, I felt sad for him because he had no business on a reality show. He had no business doing this. I don't know why he chose to do it. He's a grown man. He made a choice. But I watched that man suffer on television. And, two things can be true. He could be a liar and that can be wrong. But he could also be a hurt individual. And I can feel for him. Let's talk about Brandon, another gentleman who was on this show who married a beautiful young woman. And she had her little issues or whatever. But Brandon, from episode, I believe 2 or 3, shows you that he had crippling anxiety. He said it. He said as much. I have crippling anxiety. He also has a tattoo on his finger from a brother of his that was murdered when he was a young man. He had issues with the crew on the show. He He would curse out the crew every now and then. My wife pointed out a time where he was telling the producer, I just need to go downstairs and get a drink. I need to relax. I need to go. And they wouldn't let him. And they just doing their job. They're just doing their job. They doing what they supposed to do. He puts his hand on the camera to cover his face, and you can see his hands shaking, trembling. Full-fledged anxiety attack. What did this stem from? He's laying in the bed with his arranged wife. It's a wild situation. You've been married at first sight. You're marrying some person. Why would you put yourself in this crazy situation? She's filming him because she's just on reality TV. She's there to do a job, man. You know, she built for it. She's filming him. Oh, look at my husband snoring. He wakes up with the camera in his face and he has a full-fledged anxiety attack. For the rest of the show, the thing he feared was cameras in his face. And no one seemed to care. Now, mind you, maybe he didn't give a reason to care, but no one seemed to care. What's my point? Everybody has a breaking point. People may be laughing at Kwame Brown. People may be entertained by Kwame Brown. People may be going, oh, yeah, Kwame Brown, that man, or whatever. And I am proud of Kwame. But I also hope that Kwame is actually resolving these issues. I hope he hasn't found a new drug, which is reading people on social media. Again, I can both be proud of Kwame and still worried about Kwame. Man, been holding this in for 20 years. 20. Charlamagne the God exposed some stuff about this brother that none of us knew. And shame on Charlamagne, by the way. You talk about mental health, you talk about mental well-being, and then you talk about his father being a murderer and his brother being a murderer, and basically insinuating that they should leave him alone because he may kill Matt Barnes. And lame. I'll be the first to say it, bro. And you gave an apology on your show, and that's what's up. Kwame didn't accept it, and that's on him. That's his prerogative, and I hope you understand that. Because we don't play around with mental health. And what I want anytime I speak, whether I'm talking about sneakers or I'm talking about movies or this, just life, I want people to understand that you have to check in on your mental health. You have to. You have to. I just talked about I just put up before. I talked about 3 brothers. 3. 2 from a reality show. 1 that was on the ultimate reality show, Sports, who had been pummeled. I don't know what's up with Michael. I know the dude Brandon doesn't have a social media right now, and he's basically disappeared off the grid. I hope he's good. I hope his family's taking care of him. Again, he did some things wrong in that process, but again, I came out of it worried about him and the brother Michael, who has not disappeared off the grid and seems to be with a good woman right now, and good for him, and good for his former wife, Mika, and good for Brandon's former wife, too. I wish all of them well. I just hate to see brothers go out bad. Kwame Brown isn't going out bad right now. Right now, Kwame Brown is reading people to death, right? But I want to see Kwame begin to move on. I want to see Kwame begin to use his voice, which he has, and he does talk about a lot of dope stuff. You should actually check out some of his lives, because, you know, and he said some weird stuff about like Breonna Taylor and all that, and that's his opinion. He could be wrong about that, and who knows where that comes from. You know, just because Kwame Brown's talking doesn't mean he's a scholar. He's just a dude with an opinion. And again, you know, we know Black Lives Matter, and we know Breonna Taylor didn't ask for what happened to her, and she didn't do anything to deserve any of that. So he could be wrong on that. But again, I want to see this brother use his voice and continue to grow in his voice, because I know there's a lot of hurt in there, and I get it. Like, as a fan of his, as a fan of the team he used to play for, as a person who watched him come to this city and struggle, watched his hero haze him. I hope this brother is beginning to heal, and I want my brothers to heal. I do. Don't bottle this shit up. Don't be afraid to talk about what's going on with you. We got to start We got to start something new here for black men, man. We got to be transparent about how we feel. We got to be transparent about what's going on with us. Our mental health matters just like our lives matter. You can't have one without the other. I hope that makes sense. So Kwame Brown compelled me to get on this mic because I've been watching him for days, man. And as much as I laugh at it and think, oh, damn, Kwame Brown, oh, man, getting him. I know deep inside, man, it makes me feel, I feel for that man. Maybe it took me to turn almost 40 to realize that. Just like I feel for Michael and Brandon. And the other black man is out here struggling, struggling to stay afloat. Doesn't excuse behavior, but it does explain behavior. I saw that Stephen A. finally responded to Kwame Brown today and, responded with a highlight of all his sorry plays. And I liked Stephen A.'s original response to this, which was, you know what, I did make fun of this brother, and I wish him the best. He's been retired for some time, and there's no reason for me to go back and forth. Maybe Stephen A. feels like, damn, Kwame Brown won't take his foot off my neck. But maybe Stephen A. and Skip and other guys should realize that you didn't take your foot off his for 20 years. I get that it's complicated. I get that, sometimes we just talking about sports. And hey, if you're in the public eye, people are going to make fun of you. We make fun of celebrities all the time. Haha, funny. And yeah, sports fun to talk trash and all this and that. But the lines are being blurred and we got to adjust to the new world. And as black men, we got to have some empathy, man. I'll tell you one last thing. One more thing before I wrap this up. I go back to the Married at First Sight thing. And I go back to the reunion show, and the dude Brandon didn't show up. Apparently, it got messy between him and the girl. Restraining orders. Both of them went to jail. I mean, it's weird. Who knows, man? Again, I'm not trying to take any blame off of him. But the guy Michael's there, and he's already been, grilled about being a liar, and and he deserved it, right? He deserved it. They have the whole cast come together except for Brandon, and they want to talk about Brandon. And they began to ask Michael, who was the only person that really befriended Brandon on the show. And Michael's visibly uncomfortable. And the host, I forget his name, he used to be on Sports Center. He's on Entertainment Tonight. Forgot dude's name. Kevin something. He's, I want to say he's grilling Michael, but he's continuously asking Michael to speak for Brandon, and Brandon, Michael is just looking super uncomfortable. You can see it. So when it's all said and done, he gets up, right? He gets up, he walks off. His former wife goes, oh yeah, he about to go call Brandon. And I get it, man. Mental health is a complicated thing. It's hard to understand. And, even, it's hard to understand. And she was married to him, and I get it, but he walks off there in the back room, and the dude comes in. He's like, what's up, man? Well, man, we just trying to find out what's going on. And da-da-da-da. And he was like, yeah, but I didn't know I was going to speak for him. And this, that, and another. And then, they're going back and forth. And Michael says something that really stood out to me. And again, right or wrong, Michael can be wrong. I get it. But he said something that stood out to me. He said, he's black. And the host guy gets offended. Well, just don't do that. Don't pull the race card, man. Just because he's black. He acted an ass and this, that, and another. He tells the cameras to leave out, and they have a private conversation. But I understood what that man was trying to say. Sometimes with brothers, man, you got to understand we're a couple of steps behind when it comes to this mental health thing. And we just need a little bit more understanding. I'll just leave it at that. And I hope you guys understood what I was trying to say. And I thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning into this random ass episode of the Butler Did It podcast. Again, I'm super indecisive, but I guess it's back. Again, I won't promise. I don't know when the next episode is going to be up. I have no idea. If I feel compelled to do it, I'll do it. I don't want to make promises to you guys because I feel like I made a lot of promises before and did not fulfill them because I had other obligations. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on in my life, man. And perhaps I'll get on air and and we'll talk about these things, man. I appreciate everybody that's been supporting me. Thank you so much. Go on the OMF Network, the On My Feet app, Instagram, and YouTube page to check out the What Are Those show. Subscribe to the Gov Exec Daily Podcast. Me and Ross are doing cool things on there, man. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, please continue to be great. I love you all. Mind your mental health. Stay fresh out here, man. Mind, body, and soul. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm up out of here. Gotta get at you.